Chapter 7. Child Genius. This brings us to our third problem, child prodigies. The phenomenon is well typified in the following accounts. Boy of 8 conducts 80-piece orchestra. The 8-year-old Italian conductor, Ferruccio Burgo, made a triumphant debut with a symphony orchestra at the Carnegie Hall on Saturday. The curly-headed boy in knee pants showed no signs of nervousness as he conducted an 80-piece orchestra in 5 operatic overtures and Beethoven's First Symphony. Professional critics praised his good sense of rhythm, notable musical memory, and feeling for melody. He first conducted publicly at Fiume at the age of 4. Extract from the New Zealand Herald, March 2, 1948. Scotch child prodigy Carol Gallagher, a 7-year-old Glasgow schoolgirl who could sing the Marseillaise in French when she was 2 years old, and whose current reading is Plato's Republic and Sir Thomas More's Utopia, is arousing the interest of leading child psychologists in all parts of Britain. One of them recently set Carol an intelligence test in which university honor graduates had averaged 145 marks. Carol scored 181 marks. The director of the child psychology clinic who supervised the test said, "This child is undoubtedly a genius. She should have a wonderful future." Although she read Thackeray's Vanity Fair and Swift's Gulliver's Travels when she was only 4 years old, Carol still likes to play with dolls. The cinema sends her to sleep. Many child prodigies have shown great aptitudes in music. These include Mozart, who composed minuets before he was 4, Beethoven, who played in public at 8 and composed works which were published at 10, Hummel, who gave concerts at 9, Schubert, who composed at 11, Chopin, who played a concerto in public before he was 9, Mendelssohn, Brahms, and Dvorak, who showed exceptional talents early, Richard Strauss, who wrote a polka and a song at 6, and Samuel Wesley, who played the organ at 3 and composed an oratorio at 8. Extract from the New Zealand Herald, January 28, 1948. Mozart, Music's Wonder Child, by Donald Kouros Pitti. Positively the last concert. The boy, not yet 7, will perform on the harpsichord, play a concerto for violin, and accompany symphonies on the clavier, the keyboard being covered with a cloth as easily as if he could see the keys. He will name all notes sounded at a distance, singly or in chords, and improvise on harpsichord and organ as long as desired. Tickets, half a thaler. Thus did a notice in a German newspaper in 1763 advertise, as if he were a sideshow freak, the most universal genius of music the world has ever known, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. In the audience sat another boy, the 14-year-old Goethe, destined too to become immortal. Years later, he could still recall the far-off bright picture of the merry-faced little musician who ran to the bench before the harpsichord in his absurd, exquisite costume of lilac satin with powdered wig and tiny sword, and flung his heart into the glittering notes. Born with absolute pitch, infallible rhythm, and natural comprehension of harmony, Master Mozart had come into this world with an inexplicably complete gift. That is how, at the age of 4, the child began to play the clavier, a forerunner of the modern piano, and at 5 picked up a violin, and reading at sight, staggered through 6 trios with his father and a friend. The child read and wrote notes before he could do as much with letters. Compositions dating from his 6th year are recognizable from the opening bars as the music of Mozart and nobody else. Graceful and sure, spirited, precise and brave, they are the work of a unique stylist and a great soul. Extract from the Reader's Digest, February 1947. The doctrine of reincarnation solves the problem which child's prodigies propound. Their strange genius has been brought over from former lives in which mastery of their subject had been attained. In a new life, having thereby earned the right to, and so obtained, a parentage and a body through which their acquired genius can be expressed, they display their unusual faculties early in life. Conscious recovery of memory. The full memory of all former lives is preserved, not in the brain of each successive body, but in the consciousness of the ego, the individual immortal continuum, the inner self. To bring this memory within reach of the brain, a mental feat must be performed. The power must be acquired to dissociate oneself consciously from the physical, emotional, and mental bodies, and to identify oneself with the ego. Normally, we are accustomed to identify ourselves with our bodies, while in reality these are only vestures worn by the true man. The brain is but an instrument, thought the power which drives it, the spiritual self of the thinker being the source of the intelligence from which that thought arises. He who would gain first-hand knowledge of philosophical and spiritual truths must dissociate himself from the body, and in deep meditation realize his spiritual selfhood, know himself as the inner ruler immortal within the body. Since every detail of the past is known to the ego, full memory of that past can thereafter be attained. The primary purpose of meditation is to exalt physical brain consciousness into union with the self within. This can be done, and the process is a scientific one. Raja Yoga, the science of union, must first be studied and its principles applied. The resultant experience leads man to his own personal realization of the essential truths of religion and philosophy. He's then endowed with a faith that is no longer blind, but founded upon first-hand knowledge and therefore unshakable. The full memory of past lives having been regained, reincarnation ceases to be a theory. Thereafter, it is known as a fact in nature. The perfectibility of man. One other objection sometimes raised when questioning the verity of the doctrine of rebirth concerns the necessity for return to earth after death. It is argued that the stature of the perfect man can be attained in the spiritual worlds without the need for rebirth. In answer, it is pointed out that the terms perfection or adeptship imply not only spiritual and intellectual, but physical perfection as well. The adept has mastered and perfected his physical body and is able to maintain it in full health for a period far beyond the normal allotted span. He is also master of all the forces and energies of nature and possesses complete knowledge of natural laws and processes. This attainment is only possible as a result of direct experience. Just as one cannot learn to swim or fly by theory alone, but must practice in the appropriate element, so physical mastery and perfection can only be obtained as a result of physical experience. The solution of the problems. The doctrines of reincarnation and karma are thus seen to provide logical solutions to the four problems to which attention is drawn in the first chapter. There is not, cannot be, undeserved human suffering. Every experience is the product of preceding action by the individual to whom the experience comes, whether that action was performed in a former or in the present life. The goal of human existence is the attainment of the stature of the perfect man, and this attainment is assured to the spiritual self of every human being. Child prodigies are not chaotic sproutings from the tree of human life. They are demonstrations of the fact that every individual man has lived before, has striven and attained in preceding incarnations. In rare instances, the fruits of that attainment force their way through the childish brain and body, and when parents and teachers are sensible enough to recognize the significance of the phenomenon, a reasonable measure of intelligent training enables the past genius to flower early in the new life. People who say that they remember past lives are in no sense enigmas to the reincarnationists. When the descriptions are supported by facts and testimony, they are correctly recalling incidents of former lives.